You are welcome.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
All right. Uh, all right. Welcome once again to the live business session of the Authentic Leadership Academy. Our session holds weekly, and it's my pleasure, to come to you again this evening. And we'll be starting a new series today. And as you can see on the board on your screen, it's titled Not About Skill. It's not about skill. That's what we'll be starting today. I envisage that this is likely to run for a couple of episodes, but we'll see how far we can go, maybe about 4 or 5 episodes. Promises to be interesting. So let's get on with not about skill. What do we mean, not about skill? Remember, we're talking leadership and we're talking authentic leadership. And so there's always been the issue of skill in relation to leadership. And of course, I guess clearly a lot of people have placed a lot more emphasis on skill than on leadership. Or put differently, they have gone in the direction of skill acquisition more than they have tried to build up their capacity to provide leadership. And what then tends to happen is that at some point, they run into some key challenges. They discover that, yes, they have skill, but ultimately they're going to be put in leadership positions. And when they're put in leadership positions, they find themselves, gasping for breath, so to speak. They find themselves, finding it more difficult to get results now that they have many people to work with than they had been used to. It's like a rude awakening at some point where you suddenly discover that, hey, I have the skills, but now I have many people to manage. I have a team to manage. And sometimes the team is large. And then you discover, why am I having challenges with this team? Do I really even know what to do? Because the acquisition of skill, for the most part, doesn't teach how to lead, all right? Doesn't anticipate that your skill will be relevant up to a point beyond which it becomes your ability to manage people that will be most important. So you don't want to be stranded along the way. And, therefore, wisdom would suggest that at the very least, as you are pursuing skill, you have your eyes on developing your leadership abilities. So that's what we want to explore. And we want to use some examples to, bring home the point, to show that there are many more things critical that are more important than skill, all right, that can bail you out when you are stranded by skill. when I teach office politics, I draw people's attention to the fact that, yes, place emphasis on skill, place emphasis on your work, the excellency of your work, the quality of your work. But that should be when you are at the lower stages of your career, because it gets to a point as you make effort to rise towards the top of the ladder that your skill will be taken for granted. The possession of skill will be taken for granted. Why? Because number one, at that level, the more you progress on the corporate ladder, the more we expect that you must be skilled anyway. All right, so skill loses its ability to differentiate. You can no longer compete or progress on the basis of the skill you possess, because you're likely to find that many more people have the same skill, and some probably are better skilled than you are. So what becomes your differentiation, your point of differentiation? It can't be the skill. What more do you have to offer is the question that will be asked at that point. What more do you have to offer? And, and why is that the case? That is the case because the higher you go, the more the responsibility changes from technical to leadership. All right. When you're at lower levels, you probably don't have responsibility for managing anybody, or maybe just one or two people. And not just that, the people themselves are at the lower level. Okay. But the higher you go, now you have more people to supervise, and those are not necessarily people at the lower level. A lot of them also, have developed, and it becomes challenging. In fact, it can be more challenging to manage or to lead people who are at higher levels than it is to lead people who are at lower levels. It's like looking at, leading children. It's easier to teach children than to teach some teens or youth or young adults, or indeed, adults. Why? Because, the children, maybe that's why Jesus said, let the little children come to me. The children they believe easily. They receive easily. They don't feel any sense of accomplishment. All right. So, and they are up for adventure. All right. But the older ones are not quite easy to excite, especially when some of them have begun to feel like they've accomplished one thing or the other. And so the more accomplished people are, the more difficult it is to lead them. Okay. Because they feel that, they are not quite novice. They also have something to bring to the table. And those are levels where they begin to question everything that you ask them to do, or every instruction that you give. And I think also at that point, it's easy for them to find fault. Okay. And therefore to feel a sense of, that they can disagree with your point of view. So generally, you find that if you want to progress in your career, the skills will take you only so far. And never mind what is going on today. Again, so much talk about skill acquisition. And this time the emphasis is on ICT, data science, data analysis, and all of that stuff. Yes, the thing is that everything has a season. What is not seasonal is leadership. The need for leadership does not respect any season. There are no lower times or boom times for leadership. Leadership is a constant factor required in all seasons. It can become more crucial in certain seasons than in others. All right. But is a constant factor. Is a constant factor. So that provides additional justification for us to place a lot of emphasis on leadership. Now, one interesting thing about leadership is this, is that if you are a capable leader, perhaps that's the only skill you need. All right, yet you will still get results because you can always get people who have the other skills and manage them to bring out the best in them. The thing with leadership is that it recognizes skill and it helps you to make the most of skill. Your skill is like a gift. Your skill is like grace. Okay, the fact that you possess it is great, but it's not all there is to it. But when you have leadership input, it helps you to make the most of your gift. It's the reason why Paul always tried to call the attention of, we saw it with Timothy, where he constantly drew his attention to the gift that he had, okay, and kept challenging him that he should stir up that gift, that he should not forget the gift that was passed on to him by the laying on of hands, of the leadership, the presbytery. Now, so you find that the leader is well positioned to help anyone make the most of their gift and therefore make the most of their skill. You see, so a leader helps you to recognize skills, abilities, gifts, grace, endowments that you may not, in fact, be aware of. And then also helps you to fully exploit it. But the other way around isn't the case. Being skilled doesn't make you a leader, wouldn't make you a leader. You don't become a leader because you are skilled. You don't become a leader because you have been skilled for many years and you have worked with so many people. No. You become a leader through training, nurturing, mentoring. Okay? So while a leader can operate and be successful without having any technical skill, one with technical skill is not guaranteed success in any leadership role. Okay? Because the endowments are different. Skills tend to be fairly narrow. So once you know data analysis, or once it's about, cyber security, you can't function in too many areas outside that. But if you have leadership, if you are trained in leadership, you can operate anywhere. You can manage any set of people. It doesn't matter how skillful they are. It does not matter how skillful they are. And, you can turn them into more valuable personalities who have the ability to add far greater value both to their lives and to the society. These are the very instructive imperatives of leadership. And that's why I thought, let's step back a bit and examine these twin issues. So it's not about skill. It's not about skill. Skill is great. You need to have it. But it's not the, end all or be all I'd rather have leadership, the ability to provide leadership than, technical skills. There is a quote that is relevant here as well. It's one quote that I love and I use it from time to time. And that quote is a statement made by Norman Schwarzkopf. Always a tricky, name to pronounce, but is the army general who presided over the Iraq war. Okay. And he said that leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. He said, but if you are to be without one, without any, be without strategy. I repeat that. He said, leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. But if you are to be without any of those two, be without strategy. Very instructive. What was he saying? He says, if you are a leader, place more emphasis on character than on strategy. If you are a leader and you want to succeed, you want to do leadership right, you need more of character than strategy. What else was he saying? That statement also implies that a leader can do without strategy and still succeed. But a leader without character will scarcely succeed. Will scarcely succeed. It says, on the balance, character is far more valuable to leaders than strategy. What are we saying? It says, if you find a person with character, choose that person over the person with strategy. Let me put it differently once again. If you find someone with strong character attributes, it said that person is of greater value than one who is skilled in strategy. So essentially that statement is saying, look, character is better than skill, not just strategy. All right, any skill. Character is preferred to any skill. And that's not something that I think a lot of us can argue about. I would rather have someone with character than skill. One of the reasons is that the one with character can always develop skills, can acquire skills. It's not as easy to develop strong character as it is to acquire skills. And the value of strong character is far more than the value of skills. Now, whether we acknowledge that or realize that in the way that we run things in the world is a different thing. But like I used the example of an institution, ultimately an institution recognizes that, or at least an institution assumes away your possession of skill and expresses a preference for character the higher you go on the corporate ladder. Again, that's in support of the statement that this great leader made. And he should know. He should know. Somebody with the kind of role that he played, with the kind of responsibility, and with the kind of results that he got, should know. So that makes the point yet again that it's not about skill. That's what that man is saying. It's not about skill. Skill is important, but when the chips are down, I will go for character. And character there is leadership. That's what he said. He said, I'm a leader. I understand what is important. All right. I'm looking for people with character. When I have that, that's it. Somehow, Paul tried to make that allusion when he said, when he made the statement that, every soldier tries to please the one who sent him, that soldiers don't get themselves entangled in civilian matters, okay, because they are disciplined. They live a life of discipline. And so if you were looking at if a senior army officer was looking for a soldier, looking to recruit a soldier, and he was given a choice between one who is a sniper and another who is disciplined, his choice would be to go for the one who is disciplined, okay, instead of the sniper. Why? Because discipline is a character attribute. Desirable is a prerequisite for you in the army. Anyone can become a sniper. With proper training, you can become a sniper. But how easy is it to train someone to be disciplined? It's tough. It's tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough and it will take time. So it's not about skill, all right? It's not about skill. You can see there the preference of the leader and the role of leadership and the power of leadership. It's not about skill. It's not about skill. All right. I want to also start today's focus. I want to draw attention to what we saw with Jesus. What did we see with Jesus? And let's look at some scripture here, and I want to look at the amplified version of Matthew 4 and verse 19. And that amplified version, he said, and he said to them, follow me as my disciples, accepting me as your master and teacher, and walking the same path of life that I walk, and I will make you fishers of men. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. That was what Jesus said, to the first set of people, James and his brother, Andrew, that he recruited into his team. So from this point, he took on that formal role of a leader, okay? And he started by bringing two people under his umbrella to provide leadership for them. And this is what he said. But notice, if we go back to verse 18, this is what he says. He said, as Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he noticed two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. For they were fishermen. So yes, these guys were illiterates, all right? But these guys were fishermen. What does that mean? These guys were skilled. These guys were skilled. They had been in the business for a while. They were working, with their father, like James and John. They had been in this business. They were skilled. When you look at the range of, guys that Jesus brought together, they essentially were skillful guys. So Peter and Andrew were fishermen. James and John were also fishermen. When you look at verse 11, it said, verse 21 of the same, Matthew 4, it said, and going on further from there, he noticed two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father, Zebedee, mending their nets. And he called them to follow him as his disciples. Verse 22 says, immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him, becoming his disciples, believing and trusting in him, and following his example. So we saw that the first two were fishermen, the second, were fishermen. And we saw the case also of Zacchaeus, who was a tax collector. All right. He met him where at his job, collecting taxes. We remember that Luke was a physician, okay? And that's a skill. The tax collector was an expert in taxation, in today's palace. So he had a group of people. If we drill down to the background of Judas, who was the one keeping the bag, I presume he must have had a knack or a background or a skill in the accounting area, in the finance and accounting. So he had a team made up of skilled people. He called skilled people. Why did he call skilled people? He said, follow me and I will make you. That is, yes, you are skilled, but the skill you possess will not enable you to fully realize your potential. The skill you possess will not help you to add the most value to society. He said, I will make you no longer fishermen. I will transform you from fishermen to fishers of men. What do fishermen do? Fishermen put food on the table for people. They make, bread, fish available to people. But fishers of men do something more valuable, far more valuable. They identify men for the purpose of enhancing their value and making them, more valuable members of society. Put differently, what Jesus tried to do was to turn this man, to transform them from being merely skillful men to leaders. He moved them up the ladder from skill to leadership. From skill to leadership. Now, you will see that in the more general sense, if we were to follow what he did with them, although this man always, retained their skill, not that they lost their skill, they didn't lose their skill. Because in John 21, I believe, we saw that, after Jesus died and went to heaven, one day Peter was with his colleagues and he told them, I'm going to fish. He said, I'm going to fish. And the others said, okay, let's go. We're interested. Let's go with you. And so they all went together. Okay, and they got in the boat. And the same thing that had happened to Peter many years before, about 3 years before, happened to him again. Because they toiled all night and they didn't catch anything. It was while they were coming back again, they encountered Jesus, their leader, and he gave them almost a similar experience. So he told them what to do. and they cast their net in a particular direction and they caught plenty of fish. So the guys never lost their skill, but they were no longer relying on that skill as the basis for adding value to the society. All right, they had sort of graduated above the skill. And now we're at the point where they were being relied upon to shape the lives of men and women in their numbers. Can you see? Men who were just focused on their own narrow aspect of catching fish, selling the fish, had now been transformed to the point where they were now looking out for people to add value to. They became, they had garnered such stature in society that their impact, was undeniable. Their impact was far more than, the impact that a mere fisherman could have delivered on the society. Okay, they had been upgraded, as it were, from, bread alone, in quotes, to, living based on the word of God. He said, man shall not live by bread alone. That's the level of skill. He said, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. The bread alone does not transform anyone, but the words that come out of the mouth of God transforms everyone that cares to pay attention to it, that eats those words. That's why, Paul was writing, and he said in Acts 20 and verse 32, he said, I commend you to God. He said, brethren, I commend you to God and to the word of his grace, which is able to build you up and to give you your inheritance among the saints. So you see, he understood that the word builds up and delivers an inheritance. Delivers an inheritance. Okay, so what Jesus has done with these guys is to upgrade them. He upgraded them from the mere level of skill to the level of leadership. And that's not just a simple promotion. That's not just a mere promotion. If you can conceive of a promotion from being mere fishermen, all right, to a leadership position where you speak and at a time you influence 3,000 people. You cost the lives of 3,000 people. You cost the lives of 5,000 people to change just by, your words. A few sentences, deliver it. All right? I mean, you judge for yourself which one is more important. Which kind of contribution would you rather make? The one where you catch fish and you sell in the market? All right? Or the one where you speak to the lives of people and you observe transformation. And the people are able to do far more, all right, than they ever imagined they could do. And this was the thing that happened with these gentlemen. They were amazed at what they themselves could accomplish. They began to accomplish things by the time Jesus was done with them, that they knew clearly that had they stayed at the level of just being fishermen, they could never have done those kinds of things. One time when Jesus sent them out and gave them power, he delegated to them. They came back and told him, even the demons were subject to us in your name. They were wowed by what they were able to accomplish. That's not something that is comparable to them catching fish. That's not something they ever imagined they could be able to do. I mean, from their fishermen or fisherman, all right, mindset. But that's the level that the leader got them to. And that was a level they weren't ready to trade or to trade off for anything. They weren't ready to trade off that level for anything. They were not ready to trade off that level for anything, Okay? I mean, they held on to it. So much so that, when some character leaders, fake hypocrite leaders of their time, the members of the Council of Elders told them that they should go ahead and make sure they do no longer, spoke about Jesus or conducted themselves in the way they were conducting themselves. They responded to them instantly and said, you judge for yourself what you think we should do, what is more, appropriate for us to do. All right. They said, we cannot but, do or speak the things that we have learned and we have seen. Okay. We are now operating at a different level. Okay. This leadership calling is a totally different level. We have gone beyond, the level of people that you can intimidate. If we were still, thriving on the basis of skill as fishermen, mere fishermen, then maybe you can tell us some of the things you are telling us. But we are leaders now in our right, bona fide leaders. Okay? And we are committed to doing what is right, whatever the cost. Whatever the cost. So it's not about skill. It's not about skill. Today, therefore, I'm focusing is about focusing on what matters, leadership. It's not about skill. It's about leadership. It's not about skill. It's about leadership. If we, of course, extended this discussion as we will do during the course of the series, we will establish that, the relevance and the role or the cornerstone nature of character in leadership. And that even in this instance, when Jesus was talking about making them into fishers of men, he was really talking about, building certain character in them, building them into men and women, of certain types of character. The kind of character that puts them in a position to impact and transform the lives of many other people. Okay, so it's not about skill. We need to rethink this whole idea of skill, the priority that we accord, to skill acquisition. We need to balance things up. I think that one of the great things that happened to these guys who made this team that Jesus put together is that they were all young men. And so they had the opportunity to quickly begin to focus on leadership at a relatively young age. He didn't allow them to make the mistake of placing too much undue emphasis on skill to the detriment of developing leadership character. So, within 3 years of being with him, they were transformed into leaders. They had their skill, but much more, they had the ability to lead. And they went on to demonstrate it. And they achieved excellent results. They did greater works, as the Bible makes clear to us. And that's part of what we're saying today, that the youth must not make the same mistakes. We can learn from what happened to those guys. I mean, until this year, nobody thought that even in the ICT space, that people can be without jobs or that there can be layoffs. It seemed like it was automatic that once you are in technology or ICT and all of that, you would always have a job. You always have a fantastic job. You get to, paid a lot of money. Alas, that is turning out not to be the case, because, many people have lost their jobs. Many companies have downsized. All right, the economy is hitting hard across the board. Yes, ICT or IT is still relevant, is still there, but look at all those experiences. Who would have thought they would have happened? Who would have thought they would have happened? And some of these companies are now looking for people who have the ability to provide leadership. Because one of the challenges that it turns out that companies are having is how to lead these so-called Gen Zs and millennials. So leadership skill, as it were, the capacity, the ability to lead and to lead right, is always going to be required. Is always going to be required. But not as many people recognize that and are placing attention on that. So skill limits. To bridge that limitation, leadership should be your goal. Leadership should be your goal. Never allow anybody to get you to the point where you're exclusively focused on leadership. On skill, and you never pay attention to leadership. Some even go the extent of acquiring multiplicity of skills, all kinds of certifications, but no focus on leadership. They are also still setting themselves up for an unpleasant experience somewhere down the line, as long as their desire is to progress. And yes, some may say, well, I want to start my own thing. I don't want to even follow any corporate ladder. But okay, that's fine. Today, we have many young people, IT people, who have set up their own startups, but they're having to recruit people. And in some cases, plenty of people. In some cases, far, a great number of people that they never imagined they would require. And in that situation, now those people are looking to them to provide leadership. And so you find that one of the challenges that some of the startups have is inability to provide quality leadership. Why? Because the guys are not, they don't have leadership competence. They don't have the capacity to lead. They can be good technically. They can be good with their IT skills. But now you have to manage many people. Now you have to manage many people. So I'm going to wrap up at this point. And I've used, we started from with this background and began to build on the subject matter using, looking at things from different perspectives. But I've pretty much focused on the fact that there is a level that you and I want to get to in life, I need to aspire to get to, that requires more than skill, that indeed requires leadership competence and capacity. So that's the focus for today. Next week, I will speak further. And I guess in every part, I'll be using different illustrations, to draw attention to how Jesus himself conveyed directly and indirectly that leadership was more important than skill. And that one of the most important transformations to make is to move from reliance on skill to building leadership character, or the character that is well suited for providing quality leadership. That's a strong statement, but that's a true statement. And that's something I believe every one of us, should take away, should place a lot of emphasis on. So that's it for the live business session today of the Authentic Leadership Academy. It's been my pleasure, bringing this to you. Watch out and be a part of the subsequent parts. Remember, there will be about 4 or 5 of them for now. If it's going to be extended, we'll see how it goes. But I hope that, it's been helpful today, and you are seeing a different perspective, to the subject of leadership, and in relation to the emphasis that we place on skill. And basically, we can all learn a few things, a few important lessons from there. So once again, thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again next week. And don't forget, extend an invitation to your friends, to your sphere of influence. Let them join us. And let's make this even richer with every passing episode. All right. Thank you very much. And God bless you. Bye-bye.